What's Good podcast.
Are you ready?
Your number one source
to all the keys in the industry.
With Brianna Jovahn.
It's the What's Good podcast.
What's good?
Hey, ladies and gents, this is your girl, Brianna Jovahn, and we are here with another episode of What's Good podcast. Today, we have another Wild Card Wednesday, and for those that don't know, we are not in season right now. We are still planning for season 10, but we still, of course, want to support our business owners. Today, we have Coach Booker T. Spence. How are you?
I'm doing great, Brianna.
That's good. I'm so excited for our conversation today. I'm so excited to get into your amazing head of knowledge. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So usually when we start the podcast, we always start off with who is the guest. So for you, who is Coach Booker T. Spence?
I am multifaceted in nature, but the single core of me is purpose. I am an advocate for entrepreneurship, specifically entrepreneurship in scale. I've been operating in the professional development sector for the last 20 years, starting with training in the hair care industry, trade shows, to the whole service-based business model route. So I've worked that thing backwards and forwards, and I've always been on the professional development side, specifically as it relates to business development. So it's kind of who I am. But, now if you was to ask me who I am personally, I'm an introvert and an extrovert, right?
That's interesting.
I can do people when I want to do people, but I value my private time and when I just recharge myself. So I know when to turn it on and how to turn it on, and then I know how to turn it off. So I guess that would be two things about me, professionally and personally. I love my private time.
I love that. So I want to take it some steps back on the beginning of your journey, right? Because I think a lot of times people want to glorify the journey, but let's talk about how you even got to where you are today. And so in your entrepreneurship journey, when did it even start? I know you mentioned hair care. I know you mentioned scaling and supporting other business owners. When did it first begin as far as that seed that you no longer want to work in corporate? You want to transition over and start creating your own?
The journey started, I would say, in 1998. And before that, let me just give you a little backdrop story about me. I'm a preacher's kid, right? So I was one of those preacher's kids that was always into something, right? I was always into something. So my decisions led me to a situation that caused me to take an alternative path in life, right? So after this decision that I had made, and I had some consequences of that decision, I had to choose a different route, right? So going back into corporate America after that decision, the options for me were limited, right? So the opportunity for promotions, the opportunity to just basically as a man provide for your family it was limited, because at that point now I got a background, right? So, when you're in corporate America and you got a certain background, the decisions and the opportunities were limited, right? So I just decided, I said, you know what? I think it comes to a point in a person's life when you have a specific background and challenges from your background, you got to make a decision, right? Am I going to go back to what I used to do, or am I going to try to figure this out? And I was put in a position that I had to figure it out. But one thing I did know was corporate America wasn't the route for me. And so with that, I had to find, it's something like in the scriptures, it talks about I had to use what I had within my hands. What did I know how to do really well, right? And so the two things that I looked at that time was I knew how to cut hair really, really well because I had been doing it all my life, right? And the other part of that was I knew how to build communities, right? So when I put those two together, barbering and communities, that became the path for me. But, me being who I am, that still wasn't enough. I have a belief if I put my mind to something and I do something, I want to do it at the highest level, or it doesn't interest me. Right? If we not playing, go kill the elephant in the jungle, I really don't, it's gonna bore me after a while because I can't see a end game, right? I need a big game vision where it keeps me on path for the next 10 years. So with that, I delved into the hair care industry, and I will tell you, partly my success because I've had phenomenal, great mentors along the way. I came into the hair care industry learning how to take a pre-existing AutoZone building and turn it into a barber beauty mall. These were my mentors in Houston. I'm actually from Houston. So I had the top of the top mentors coming into the hair care industry. Remember, big game, big vision. So I was always surrounding myself with those that could nurture that big game, big vision inside of me. And so from that, I began to look at what people were doing and what I was exposed to. There was a gap. And I was like, no, I don't want to do no one barbershop. It don't interest me, right? How about us having 10 barbershops across the Houston Metroplex, right? So I've always been that franchise scalable person that wanted to achieve something that was worthwhile achieving. So my background, to answer your question, my background came from decisions that I made from 16 through 21. Now, I'm gonna give you a little time frame. So if you say 16 to 21, I'm 56 now. I know I don't look it,
That's
but
right.
anyway. So I was in that era of the crack cocaine era. I was in that era. When you watch the movie Kill the Messenger, I remember all of that, right? When that whole thing. So I grew up in the 80s from 86 to 91, 92, and that whole thing right there. So a lot of people got caught up in that. So with that being said, I realized that the path for me was through entrepreneurship. And that's what got me to where I'm at today.
And so you mentioned a lot of things, but one in particular thing that really stood out to me is the planning portion of it. And it doesn't matter where you are in life when it comes to your business, you're always going to be planning either for that next plan to scale, or if you're trying to hire somebody, or whatever the case may be. For you, in this instance, as a mentor, you mentioned people poured into you as well. What would you say for someone that's trying to go to that next level? What does that planning look like for them to actually sit down, get their thoughts together, and make sure, like you mentioned, you was thinking 10 years. Like, I know this is the vision that I have, and I need to make sure that things go well. What does that planning aspect look like?
So when I typically work with a person as it relates to planning, I ask one question: what is your end game? Right? The end game will help define what your planning looks like. And a lot of times, can I give you a story about this real quick? Okay, so I was at the Small Business Expo, right? And I was talking to this guy, and he had a security company, and he was telling me about, what he did in revenue, what his profit margins, and, what he was trying to do. And I asked him, what is his end game? And he told me, well, I hadn't gotten that far. Right. So he's in the day-to-day owner operator, but there's not a defined end game. A defined end game would be for your business, this company, you operate in the, let's just say, broadcast industry, right? You're planning with this company to do 6.5 million with a valuation of 10.5 million in 7 to 8 years. That's an end game. Now, when you mention that, now you've bypassed all the owner operator conversation. Now you're telling people where you want to be. Now, when you be able to communicate from a planning standpoint, what is the destination? Now the people that will come along to support you know what the end game, the destination is, and your advisors will change. So it's hard to do planning with me and coaching and training without understanding your end game, because your end game, not only financially, but your end game will have a conversation like this: Spence, I want freedom. Now we have something. Okay, you say that you're building this company because of freedom in 5 to 7 years. What does freedom look like for you? Okay, Spence, I want to take off for a whole year, write a book. I want to travel the country. I want to visit 4 countries, Greece, Italy, Milan, Morocco. Oh, okay. Now we know how to put this business together for your end game because your end game is freedom. This business is a vehicle for my freedom to do what I really want to do. Did that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So planning is so crucial, and I wish that my desire is that more business owners think in terms of end game, because now when the market goes up and down and these new trends and these new policies and all that kind of stuff come out, it impacts your business. Like the government shutdown, that impacted our business. But what didn't change was your end game. No matter what goes on, we can pivot more easily because the end game is freedom with the valuation to do XYZ.
Okay, with that being stated, can you tell us the difference of working in your business and on your business?
Oh my God. Okay. Good. So you'll hear it in people's language, right? When you hear someone that's working in their business, they'll talk about, oh, I need to create more value for my customer. Oh, they'll talk about revenue goals, right? They're involved. What the terminology is a owner operator conversation. But when you hear someone that talks about working on their business, they're looking at how can they increase the enterprise value within their business. So they're talking scalability, they're talking about assets, they're talking about a lender-ready funding package, they're talking about different things. They're working on the business, increasing the value on increasing the value in the business. So what happens when the valuation grows, right? Now you got systems in place. You're not looking for someone. You created the system before the person got there. So you're talking systems and processes that you can hear it in the language. And don't get me wrong. I was a person, I believe, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to put it out here live, only on your podcast, right? I believe that the SBA and the small business sector has failed us. And here's why. I think that the SBA, don't get me wrong, let me say it like from a standpoint of, because I work with startup entrepreneurs, right? I work with startup entrepreneurs, and here's a gap that I'm hearing. The SBA is set up in an ecosystem, right? And so based on how you position and pitch and communicate your business, they're going to put you in a category. That category is owner operator. So they'll start giving you information for owner operator, right? Revenue, profit, customers, right? That's what they want to talk about. But the piece that they don't share is enterprise value, capacity, right? They're not sharing that information. So what happens is the startup entrepreneur has the wrong model from the beginning. They have a model of an owner operator that's designed to fit within an economic development framework in a specific area. I know that was a lot, but
No, that makes sense to me because I know when we initially talked, I had to change my mind frame on a lot of things when it comes to how I'm discussing my business as far as like my exit strategy. So, regarding these different ways to scale your business, right? And you mentioned that there are certain things that owners should be working on. There are certain things that owners should not be working on, especially when it comes to the valuation, when it comes to doing these specific things of freedom, whatever their end game is, right?
Okay.
What are certain systems that people can get in place now to help them and get support so they can worry about the other things to help them move forward within their business?
Okay, I got your question. Now, there's a word that you're using, what systems, right? A system is a system, but we have to start from a framework. a point of reference to impact the system. So the framework would be to have a scalable conversation. A scalable conversation is a conversation that your business is able to grow beyond you, right? The next one is to have a fundable conversation. You're selling your business every day. You say, well, Spence, I'm not trying to sell my business, right? No, you're selling your business every day. So that's scalable, fundable, and transferable. This is a framework, right? And lastly, is it sellable? What is the valuation of it? I know that this conversation may be, well, I don't know. This is a shift in conversation from systems is you can get bogged down on creating a system without thinking in terms of scalability, right? So scalability is capacity, right? So when we think of systems, system is kind of like this end product that's over here, right? But the framework is scale. Okay, if we grow this company to X, right? Then we need to have a system built that can handle 2.5 million. Even though we're at 350,000, you want to build the system at 2.5 million. So when you pitch your business and they say, well, Miss Brianna, can you go globally? Can your software, can your system can it handle 6 point? Well, I ain't gonna go there. Boy, my numbers. Okay. Can it handle 2.5 million users on that platform? You say, absolutely. Right? That's a conversation of scale, right? You're still talking about the system, but in growing your business, the conversation is scale. The system is how you do it. But if you get bogged down on the system, you lose people on the scale conversation.
But I do think in between there, it has to be some type
Mhm.
of strategy because you just can't hop from
Absolutely.
one thing to another, right? And that's where I'm trying to get
Absolutely.
to is that mindset shift
Mhm.
of course, you have to figure out that system because if you don't get that
Mhm.
system, you're not going to be worried about the $2.5 million that potentially you could have missed because that system is not there, if that makes sense.
Right.
And
Got
so
it.
for me, when you're having these conversations with your mentees, right? What does that look like for them to get that mindset ready to say, hey, in your particular industry, do you have these things in place? Are you even thinking about hiring people? Because a lot of times we feel like we have to do everything by ourselves. We have a lot of control because again, we're doing this and we're like, oh my gosh, everything has to be perfect. But if you're talking about growing, if you're talking about scaling, what would you say is like a few things that they need to have as far as mindset or tangible to get them prepared to scale?
Now, if I was to say the question that you're asking me is a operational question, a system or a strategy. I can't answer that until I understand working it through the framework. What is the purpose of this business? Right? Why was it built? Was it just built for cash flow? Because understanding that, then this is the piece that's not being taught of the why, the purpose of this business. Then you'll build it totally different. You'll see it totally different. In conclusion, and answer your question, it's hard for me to answer that question about systems and strategies unless I really dig in to find out the intent of why you did this. Why this business? Why now? What is the valuation? What do you want to do in revenue from a high level and then reverse engineer it?
No, I think that's
Because
perfect.
the system's going to be totally different,
Mhm. No, I think that's
right?
yeah, I think that's perfect because at the end of the day, like I was mentioning, this mindset, the why behind it, the intention behind it. Where do you want to go with it? Because even with my clients, I ask them, when you want to start a podcast, is it a hobby or is it for the business? Are you trying to get money to come in? So definitely those are questions that people need to evaluate before they even get into business. And even during that business plan process, that's how you create those systems. So I think that was perfect. That was perfect. All right. So one of the frameworks that you have is called the massive value framework. Can we talk about that a
Mhm.
little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the massive value framework, it helps people transform their business into a high value scalable asset. So the framework consists of 4 components, being scalable, fundable, transferable, and sustainable, right? So it's a framework to help those that are already in business that's probably doing about 250,000, and they're looking to 2 things that they can do. They can increase the value on it, or can become exit ready, right? So the massive value framework helps develop that conversation of increasing the value in your business. Why the massive value framework now? People are opting out. There's a wave of people that are opting out of starting businesses because they understand from 0 to 100 is so hard, and you're going upstream. It's so much that you have to do, to whereas if I buy an income producing asset with a value add, income producing asset with the value add, then we're walking into an already producing business. Then you have a lot of Main Street businesses that are exiting the market, but they did not have succession planning. So they may be doing 250,000 in revenue, or let's just say 1.5 million in revenue, right? With a 16% margin, 250,000, but they have no systems in place. They have no documented procedures. It's a lot of things that they don't have. So without this, they may be doing 750,000, but can only sell it for 1.2 if they need to exit. Because at some point, you want to put yourself in from an entrepreneurship standpoint. I think that every entrepreneur should put themselves in a position to have options, right? The days of having a business for 20 years that ain't the time that we in no more, right? There are some people that are starting a business, buying a business, and in 5 years, they out. They own to write a book. You only found out that you wanted to travel the country. That's why you started this business. So the massive value framework works on 2 sides. It's a value creation with an exit readiness for pre-existing businesses that are already in the market.
Love that. Okay, so I do want to talk about Texas 1000 projects, because I know it has
Absolutely.
been very beneficial to me and my business. And
Right.
so let's go ahead and talk about the organization a little bit.
Texas 1000 project. That is, you know what? I'm so excited about the Texas 1000 project. It is evolving, right? So we are evolving in our programming. We've had successful 3 to 4 years now. So we're at that turning point. And as we have new administration in office, as the market is shifting, we're evolving in our programming. So we're going to offer programming this year moving forward. It's just going to be, first, it's going to be exciting. So what we've primarily been in the small business startup, right? That's your service-based business. But we want to deal with more now as we evolve in scalable startups, right? They had the framework from the beginning to scale, right? And I think that at that level, we can be a better, Texas 1000 can be a better partner for our partners, our sponsors. We can have more of a greater impact, not just having participations in trainings. We can have more of a measurable outcome as we move forward. If we did a training class and you had 30 people came in that training class, 15 of them need to walk away with something, right? So it's so important that we move away from Texas 1000, that we move away from participation and focus on outcomes. Everything that we do moving forward is based on outcomes.
Let's talk about a few of the programs. I know I've attended a few of the courses. I've attended some of the
Right.
webinars. I've hosted one, actually, whoop, whoop, and the LLC grant. And so let's talk about some of the programs.
So we currently have our program as LLC and Funding Readiness program. That's what we've been focusing on in the last 3 years, helping small businesses protect their assets through our LLC grant. So that has been a success. We did the Texas Startup Summit, and that summit was highly inundated with information about access to capital, right? But as we're starting 2026, we're evaluating what we've done, right? And how can we evolve and improve? So, with our LLC program moving forward, we're going to look at that, evaluate that. How effective has it been? Where are the LLCs that we have given out? Where are they at in their business, right? And really just, look at that from an outcome standpoint and how effective has it been, right? And so we want to do more programming that meets the need for business owners. Not just, you come into a training, we give you this information and you walk away and you're spinning your wheels. So what I would like to do as an executive director is some of the massive value framework, we're going to infuse that into our training to give people a blueprint of a viable, scalable business model. I believe without that framework, infusing that framework into our training with the Texas 1000 project, without that, I think that we're doing a disjustice. And I'm going to put it on there. I think that I'm one of those people, I don't like to give people half information. I just know you need to see the clear picture because entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. Them bills come every month. And I know, Lord, let me tell you. See, early on in my entrepreneurship, I used to laugh about this. I still got a God, but I'm going to talk about the God years ago. I used to have 1158, 1159 God. The God that show up 1 minute before they finna cut them lights off. Making payment plans with my cell phone, but I'm showing up clean as all get out. You hear what I'm
It was
saying?
nobody's
They
business.
never knew. It wasn't their business, but I'm telling you, look, like that pastor said, I done been down through there. And so at this age, at 56, I don't want to teach watered down stuff. I don't want to have a program that I'm just out here saving the state of Texas and getting nowhere. I don't like that. I think that now, do I think that the minds have to be developed for this kind of thinking? Because it's going to be a shock to your system because it's like, wait a minute, Spence, you're talking about scalable? I ain't never heard of scalable like that, right? You're talking about lending readiness financials. Can I tell you something, Miss Brianna? So, did you know that most people have bookkeepers and CPAs, but not a CFO?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you know what? You got an MBA. So, all right, I already know what I'm talking about. Okay, got it. So, you need a finance person from the jump that you put them on assignment. Look, I'm going to give you this from my CPA. You're going to manage the financial portfolio so you can make sure that my financial story is lender ready. Nobody's talking about that. Lender ready financials from the jump, right? We're going to build this business to raise 2.5 million. That's the purpose. This operating company is set up to raise 2.5 million. Oh, okay. Okay. So without that, it becomes another access to capital class. Well, check your credit score.
Yeah. And I do want to mention, with that being stated, is the very first class that I went to that was in person. I think it was in Arlington. I took my cousin with me, and you gave us a worksheet. And you was like, if your end goal is $1.5 million, we need to start thinking about those packages that will get you to that $1.5 million. And even with these packages, within the next 5 years, how many packages do you have to sell in order to get to that $1.5 million? So even outside of that, you reached out to me one-on-one to say, "Hey, Bree, do your homework on the media industry and who's buying and selling your particular business." And
I
so
did. I forgot about that. Yeah, man.
and so the reason I wanna bring that up is because when it comes to Texas 1000 Project, I feel like you're already doing it. You may not feel
Mhm.
like it, but from somebody on the outside, I feel like you are teaching more than just what's in the classroom, right? You're actually giving us worksheets. You're not just giving us presentations, if that makes a difference. Because a lot of times when we do go to these lunch and learns, it's
Yeah,
more of a presentation versus worksheets versus homework versus follow-ups,
that's
and that's
good.
something
That's
that I
good.
do want to say thank you for because you not only talk about it, you're actually doing it. And you're so, I need to do this, I need to do that. And I'm like, you're doing it,
But you know what? You said an interesting point, and just a side note, I thank you for that because being a big vision person, sometimes we'll miss the details of what we already doing because we own the big vision. It's like, look, I got to go get this elephant. You with me? But you just mentioned something that's what I mean by we don't want participation. If you want participation, go to the other programs.
I love it. No, I love it. Okay, so tell the people how they can reach out. I know, like you mentioned, there's separate programs. We have the grant. There's a lot of different things that you're working on. So how can people get in contact with you and stay up to date?
So here's what I would say to you, right? Here's what I would say to you. I'm in a transition phase. So the best thing would do is to come through Texas 1000 Project. We're rolling out. Our programming is evolving. And so the team is coming together to have a meeting. So it's best thing I could say right now today, right, is Texas 1000 Project, right? Now, me personally, reaching out to me personally, one-on-one, it would be the massive value framework. So if you're going to reach out to me personally through the massive value framework, but Texas 1000, we're probably about February, we'll be able to say, what this new programming looks like and be able to roll it out. But right now, it will be the Texas 1000 Project.
Beautiful. Is there anything that I missed that you would like to share before we leave today?
You know what? There's nothing that wait a minute, hold on. First of all, I would say, I commend you on, you are showing up, right? You're in the right spaces. You're visible online. I really believe that with a strong end game, and in the next 5 years of really clarifying what does that look like in 5 years, or what we would say is to create a 5 year identity or create an identity of your next 5 years. What are you walking into? Who do you have to become to manage a $2.5 million online programming media company? Who sits on your board? What memberships? You know what? I'm gonna say this last thing. I was talking to somebody the other day, and so there's a country club in Dallas, right? So it's called the Dallas Country Club, right? So I said, go online and see how much the membership is. And they said, oh my God, Spence, it's $150,000 a year. I said, okay. Hello. They said, oh, but that ain't it. We also got to pay a membership. That's the 150,000 is the initiation fee. And then they have a monthly membership fee, which is, I think, 10,000 or something like that. I said, oh, okay. Oh my God, that's just a lot of money. I said, no, it's not a lot of money. So what that looks like to me is $250,000 gives us access for this new identity, right? We're going to have to pay now for access. If that country clubs gives us access to the most elite in Dallas, the price is $350,000. Not how much it costs. Where can we get the $350,000 from? That's it, Miss Brianna.
No, I agree. I agree. But you know what? I think that was really good to like a full circle moment of our full
hmm
conversation is the end
hmm
game. Once you
Yep.
know what you want to do, you can figure out how to do it. But if you
Yep.
don't know where you're going or what the end game is, you're working without a vision because you don't know what the vision is. So
And you have a lot of confused people around you. relationships gonna be broke. You're gonna be married and remarried. Trust me, I know. But the the currency is clarity.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And hope. One more word.
Mhm.
Clarity. And here's the real key piece: alignment. Alignment, no clarity, you in trouble.
It's a wrap.
I think I said that right.
Yeah, no, you did good. Well, I am so thankful for you, Coach Spence, for coming on, sharing your amazing thoughts and knowledge. And for everybody that's listening and watching, we will have all of the links in the show notes so you can get in contact with Coach Spence. But if you're listening to this morning, noon, evening, or night, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of What's Good Podcast. And we will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for joining us for another episode of What's Good Podcast with your girl, Brianna Jovahn. If you found today's discussion inspiring, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your preferred podcast platform. Explore additional resources on our website at whatsgood-productions.com and find our social media links listed in the show notes. Stay tuned for more captivating stories ahead. Until next time, stay blessed and keep uplifting your community.